Hey everybody, this is Jeremiah at Reed Racing. We are back. We're going to do a little bit different video today. It's going to be kind of an informative series for new or inexperienced drivers, all the way from before they purchase a car, what they should do, all the way up to on race day, what to expect, kind of stuff like that. If you learn anything or would like to follow along with this series, hit that subscribe button below. Doesn't cost anything. Just one click. Helps me out a ton. Allows me to make more videos. Also, if you're looking to get into racing, leave a comment below. Let me know what you're getting into. If you guys have any tips that I don't cover in these videos that you want to let other people know that may watch this video in the future, leave a comment below. Let them know. I may even take that tip in your comment, and it might be something that, hey, I do want to include that in my next video. And if you do, hey, I'll shout it out. Hey, that person said this, and you should definitely do that. So make sure to check out the comments below and look at their tips as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about, before you even look at buying a car or driving a car or anything like that, I would recommend going and working as a pit crew for somebody in the class that you want to run. So let's say you want to run sport mod. Even if you don't know anybody that currently races a sport mod, go to your local track, walk around the pits, look for somebody that is either working by themselves or they have one or two people. Don't go up to them when they're super busy and working on something, thrashing on something. Go up to them maybe before the races even start, while they're just hanging around, and say, hey, I noticed you don't have a lot of help tonight. If you want some help, I don't know a lot yet, but I'm willing to learn. And so if you want some help, just let me know. If you want to, you can give them your phone number. That way they can just text you if you're not around their pit, or just kind of hang around that area or whatever. And I guarantee you somebody would more than appreciate the extra hand throughout the night. So, and it may not happen on the first night. You might hang around the first night and nobody really needs help. Keep going back, keep offering help. Somebody will be more than happy to let you help and learn and teach you. Some of the benefits for working on a pit crew for somebody: you're going to learn the adjustments on the car, even if they may not know and they're new. If you work with them for a couple races or a season, if you make an adjustment on the car, or, let's say you move a bar and they go out and they say, oh, that was way looser. Well, now you know what that changing that bar in that direction does. You're also going to learn the cost of things. You're going to learn how much fuel they have to bring to run through the night. You're going to learn how long tires last, how many tires you're going to have to buy if you want to race X amount of nights. You're going to learn how to repair the car, how to fix the car, how to adjust the car, stuff like that, which is very valuable when you go to start racing yourself, because you're ahead of the curve. You're not behind the eight ball figuring out how to do that stuff while you're also trying to race. You have a lot more time when you're just helping pit crew for somebody to learn that stuff. It's going to help you get ahead of the other new drivers when you do go to hop into a car, and you'll gain some friends along the way that when you get a car, they're probably going to be more than willing to help because you help them. It's just kind of the way the racing community works. If you help somebody, they're probably going to help you back. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Another thing I would recommend is to research before you buy. Go around to your local tracks, or if you're close friends with some people, ask what chassis they recommend, how the relationship is with their chassis builder. Your chassis builder can be the most helpful person when it comes to setting up your car. One of the mistakes that I made was I just went and bought a car and didn't really do any research on the chassis builder, didn't do any research on the chassis itself. I bought a car that was 12 years old, which is a pretty old car. When I went to call the chassis builder to get setup sheets for it, he wanted to charge me for setup sheets for a 12-year-old car. Now, later on, I learned that most of the chassis builders just give you their setup sheets for that car because they want you to do well in their car. Now, the money that he wanted for the setup sheets was a store credit that you could use at the builder's shop to buy bumpers or whatever. But for me, I was building my own bumpers because the chassis builder was also an hour and a half away from me. So I wasn't going to drive an hour and a half to buy a bumper for 70, 80, 90, 100 bucks, whatever it was, when I could just build one at my house because I have all the tools. To me, it didn't make sense why I should have to pay for a setup sheet for a 12-year-old car. That's just some of the things that you'll learn, and talking to people afterwards, there's a mixed bag. There were some people that got a lot of help from this chassis builder, but there was also a lot of people that when I told them that he wanted to charge for that setup sheet, that they weren't really that surprised. Just talking to people and asking around will help out a lot, just to learn what chassis they recommend, what builders they recommend, stuff like that. So now we're going to get to buying a car. So with your first car, I would recommend getting a cheaper car. I don't mean the cheapest car out there. Don't go to Facebook, find the cheapest thing and say, yep, I'm going to buy that one, because that's not a good plan. Find something that's a good value. So you don't need the latest and greatest car out there to be competitive. Yes, the newest cars probably have the best setup because they've done more research on them, but that's not always true either. There's guys out there that are running 5-10-year-old chassis winning races all the time. So you don't need the latest and greatest car out there, but you also don't want to buy somebody's junk. You don't want to buy a car that probably shouldn't be on the racetrack anymore. Before you even go to buy a car, if you find a car that you want to buy, let's say it's a GRT. Call GRT, call your local dealer for GRT, and ask for the setup sheets. Ask a simple question about the car. See how helpful that chassis builder is. If they're, extremely helpful, they want to help you. They want to, even though you're not buying the car, if you haven't bought a car and you're not buying a car from them, and they're willing to help you, they're probably going to be even more willing to help you once you get a car. Because if you buy, let's say you buy a GRT, you're probably going to go into the local GRT dealer to buy their parts when something breaks. So they're going to get business regardless. But if they kind of just shrug you off, they don't seem very helpful, don't buy that chassis. Just plain and simple, don't buy it. Because you're going to struggle, you're going to fight, it's going to be hard to get that car to be competitive without chassis builder's help, especially being new. If you know what you're doing, you know a lot about the cars, great, you could probably figure it out. Otherwise, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Call the chassis builder, just ask, say, hey, I'm looking at a 2012 Harris. Call Harris. Hey, I'm looking at a 2012 Harris. If I buy this car, would you guys be willing to send me the setup sheets? I have a Harris sitting in the garage right now. I bet you if I call my local Harris dealer, they'll email me the setup sheet for that car. Like I said earlier, ask other people what they think of that chassis builder as well. If you got buddies that race, even if they don't race that chassis currently, they may have raced one in the past. Say, I'm looking at a Harris and I want to get your guys' opinion on the chassis builder and how helpful they are. And if they've bought a Harris car before or ran a Harris car, they're probably going to know or have an opinion of how helpful that chassis builder was. So definitely do that. So why I say to buy a good used car over a new car in your first year is you're probably going to bend something up. You're probably going to smash the wall. You're probably going to, make a mistake and bend something up or break something throughout the course of the season. And it's just going to happen. The best drivers in the world make mistakes. You obviously can expect yourself to make a mistake if you haven't ever been in a car, or even if you've been in a car, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Everybody does it. So you're probably going to bend something, probably going to break something in your first year. If you bend it bad enough, would you rather have to replace a $4,000 car or one that cost you $20,000, $25,000? It's kind of pretty simple it's going to happen. It's just the way it is. So when you go to buy the car, kind of have an idea of what it's going to cost to put together in your head. If you buy a race ready car for X amount of dollars, or you buy a roller for X amount of dollars, you kind of have to weigh what you need to finish a roller versus what you can get for a race ready car. Now real quick, we'll go through a scenario where you're buying a roller versus a race ready car, because you're going to kind of weigh the options of what's going to be overall better for you. Obviously if you don't know as much, buying a race ready car might be better, but you also don't want to buy a race ready car that may not be actually race ready. It may need parts, or stuff may be wore out. Okay, so real quick, I'll just go over kind of what it costs to build a good used car, just to kind of give you an idea. A lot of the prices that I got for this are from Speedway Motors, so you can kind of check their prices. Obviously you can buy used parts, but you got to be wary of what you're buying. If you're going to buy used parts, make sure you either know what you're looking at or that you bring somebody that does. But real quick, so we'll go through it. So roller, let's say you get a roller for $3,500. Now a roller is going to be most of the time no drivetrain, no gear, no shocks, no seat. So get a good roller, good rear end, axles, stuff like that. You only need the gear forward. So we're going to start in the front. We're going to say you're going to run a crate engine, just for easy numbers. You can obviously find good built engines, for used ones, $2,500 or so. But a brand new crate, $4,000. Now that doesn't include a lot of the pulleys and stuff like that. So we're going to run through those as well. So they don't come with a carb. If you get a good carb, the crate carb, $700. And then go along with that, you need to put fuel to the carb. So you're going to need a fuel pump. That's going to run you $45. Water pump, doesn't have one of those. I can type. Water pump, $72, just for generic water pump. Power steering pump with a reservoir, doesn't come with that. Still can't type. We're just gonna leave it that way. $200 with a reservoir. And then you're gonna need spark plugs. They don't come with spark plugs. Just the generic NGK crate plug. $32 for 8 of them. There's obviously better plugs out there, but that just increases the price. So that's just your generic NGK race plug. Good set of wires, because you don't want to just put a bare set or basic set on. Good set of wires, $100 at least. Crate flywheel, flex plate, whatever you want to call it, $24. Good starter, just a generic, race starter, $105. And then you're gonna have headers, $230. So those don't come on it either, or don't come with it. A lot of times sometimes you will get those with a good roller, just because they kind of build them for the car. Then you're also gonna need the back of the flex plate. You're gonna need a clutch. $700 for a good quartermaster clutch. On behind that, throwout bearing. That's gonna run you $100. And then you're gonna have transmission. Good used rebuilt 3-speed Saginaw. You're probably looking $400. Drive shaft, probably anywhere from 180 on up. Then you're gonna, behind the drive shaft, you're gonna need a gear, $250 to $300 for a good used one. And if you're running more than one track, you're gonna need multiple. But let's say you're running just the one track. Okay, you still need shocks. Good set of shocks, probably $800 to $1,000. So adding all this up, you're looking $11,500, and that's if you get the roller for $3,500. So if you can find a race ready car that you feel, or whoever you bring with you feels is a good car, has good parts, all that kind of stuff, if you can get it for under $12,000, you're probably getting a decent deal. That's a relatively cheap version of a car. There's guys out there spending $40,000 for a car. Spend, $25,000 on a car that has no drivetrain in it. And they still got to put a drivetrain in it, and then they're spending $15,000 on a drivetrain. An open motor, good open motor built by somebody else. You're probably looking $8,000 or more. So you can easily have $40,000 into one of these cars. Or you can buy a good used roller, put good parts on it, and race for about $12,000, and still be competitive. So, okay, so now that we ran through that, obviously that price didn't include gaskets and all that extra stuff. You probably could, between gaskets and fluids and all that stuff, you probably could add another $500 to $1,000. So that's kind of, you have to keep that stuff in mind when you're buying a roller versus buying a race ready car, because if it's going to cost you $12,000 to build a roller versus buying a race ready one for 9 or 10, and you bring somebody with that says, hey, the car's good, you're good to go. Well, you just saved $3,000 as long as nothing goes wrong with the car. So it's always something to keep in mind. Kind of before you commit to buying something, do the math on it. Figure out what it's going to cost. And when you go to look at the car as well, if you don't know what you're looking at, bring somebody with that does. Because the last thing you want to do is buy a car and find out that the car is junk, or that it shouldn't be raced, or that something's wrong with it that you can't afford to fix. So bring somebody with you that knows what they're looking at. I'm sure there's somebody that you can find that knows enough about the cars that you can get to go with you, even if you have to buy them dinner or something. It's going to save you money in the long run, because they're not going to let you buy something that's junk. So one of the mistakes that I made was I didn't have somebody with me to check out the car that actually knew something. I've worked as a mechanic. I know a lot of the ins and outs of regular cars, but race cars are a whole different animal. So bring somebody that knows what they're looking at, what they're talking about. It's going to save you money in the long run. Even if you have to buy them dinner, take them with you. Get somebody to go with you that knows what they're talking about. I made the mistake of buying a car that I thought was good. It was a race ready car. I didn't know enough about them, so I wanted a race ready car if I could. Went with a little bit cheaper option. I had an option to buy a car that was a little bit more expensive, that was race ready. I knew more about the car because I had pitted for the guy a couple times the previous year, and probably would have got a better car. Instead, I went with a little bit cheaper car. Bought it. The guy that I had bought it from, Corey, he's in a couple other videos. He only had the car a couple of nights, so he didn't know a lot about it either. He knows more about the cars than I do, but he didn't, he kind of just bought it, raced a couple times, and was selling it. When I bought the car, he started it up. Everything seemed fine. Frame didn't look tweaked, too bad or anything like that. So, paid him the money, loaded it up on the trailer, took it back home. Go out to race a couple weeks later. First night out, spun 3 rod bearings in the motor's junk. Come to find out that the guy that sold it to him put a crate flywheel on an open motor. The crates are externally balanced, open motors are internally balanced. So it spun the rod bearings because it was out of balance. Over the off season, I had to take the transmission out of the car. I took it over to a guy just to kind of look it over and freshen it up. Ended up being that the transmission was probably a couple seconds from grenading. So, my story is kind of the extreme. Most often that's probably not going to happen, but it can happen. I basically paid race ready price for a car that was more of a roller at that point. Don't make the same mistake that I did. And with that being said, one of the things you don't want to do when you're racing is to start going into debt just to race. If you can't pay cash for something, don't buy it. Race within your means. Run the numbers on it. Figure out how much pit passes cost, because you're going to have to buy a pit pass for you, possibly any crew members that come with, stuff like that. You're going to have to buy gas. You're going to have to buy tires. Tires are $120 a tire. For a sport mod, they might last 2 or 3 nights. Well, 2 or 3 nights on the rear, maybe more on the front, but not much more. So you're looking, basically 1 tire a night new is what it's going to cost you. Well, there's $120 a night before you even get in the gate. And then you got, your pit passes, you got maintenance on the car, oil, filters, fluids, stuff like that. You got the parts that are going to break. You got the entry fee if there's one. You got transponder rentals if you don't have a transponder. Otherwise, you got to pay for the transponder for the year, and then you got to pay for the subscription, stuff like that. So run the numbers, figure out, this is what I can afford, and stick to it. Don't try to race so many nights that you're going to go broke and then you can't race in the future and you have to sell the car, because that's the last thing you want to do. Don't go into debt. Race within your means. Make sure to maintain the car. Maintaining the car will help keep stuff from breaking and help keep it cheaper. Don't go so long on an oil change that you have to spend money on a new motor. It's cheaper to buy an oil change, a couple more oil changes, and have the motor last longer than rebuilding the motor. So if you buy a car on a loan or a motor on a loan or whatever, and you wreck the car or you blow up the motor, now you have a car you can't race or a motor that you can't race with. You have the loan that you still have to pay for, and they're not going to give you another loan to get another motor. So don't race on loans, credit cards. If you can't pay cash for it, don't buy it. Simple as that. So that's where we're going to end the video for today. If you learned anything, you want to follow along, make sure to hit that subscribe button below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Check out all our partner links down in the description below as well. Underground Ink and H&R Block, both out of Webster City. A Mirror Image out of Fort Dodge. Ralph's Tap out of Moreland. And Capturing Moments Photography out of Otho. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.